Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome. And as I was saying, that was not a mistake. That song was chosen. Your true calling is calling you, because we're talking about dream building. And that's what we're going to be talking about for the whole rest of the year. I'm inviting each and every one of you to identify some dreams for your own life. And together, we're going to be working on our dreams and the dreams for the center, and there's just going to be a lot of energy and a lot of creativity and a lot of new stuff coming. So buckle your seatbelts. Anybody ready? Yes, I'm ready. I know I'm ready. I'm very excited about this. So welcome. I don't think we have any first-time visitors today. We do? We do. Welcome. We're so glad to have you here this morning. And know that the message today, I hope, is for everyone. That's always my intention, that whatever message I deliver, that every one of you walks away feeling like, wow, that was just for me today. Let you know. So, deciding for a dream. Last week, we talked about the idea of dreams themselves and how so many of us get disconnected from our dreams. It seems something that happens to us as life happens. So, okay. That kind of represents for me where many people are, the kind of state of mind that folks are in, feeling somewhat imprisoned by what's going on around them, by circumstance, feeling like life depends on what's going on outside of them, that their life and how they show up has to do with their circumstances. I call it the domestication of humans. I'm probably not the only one that calls it that. And if you were here last week, you heard the analogy that I gave of the elephant. How many of you were here heard that? Yeah. You know that, and I'll just share it again for those who might have missed it. The idea that elephants are trained, elephants are wild animals, out in Africa. They're not the tame, docile creatures that we see in the circus. That behavior is a result of their conditioning. And what they do is they tie a rope or a chain to them when they're little, and they put a stake in the ground, and the elephant can't pull away from that. And what I didn't tell you last week is that the term that they use for that practice is breaking the spirit of the animal. And that's what they do. So the elephant gets used to that pull and thinks it can't get away from it, and eventually just gives up. They bring its food to it. It just doesn't have to do anything. It has this little circle that it can walk when it's got this chain attached to it. So even when it grows up, even when it's tons and huge and massive and has all kinds of strength, when it feels that tug of the rope or the chain, it doesn't go past a certain distance. And it's really quite a shame. But it's something that happens actually to all of us, I think. Life happens. You have these big dreams and you have these ideas when you're a little kid. You want to be an astronaut and a ballerina and a firefighter and all of these things at the same time. We have all these great dreams, and then somehow life just kind of beats it out of you. Can anyone relate to what I'm talking about? Right? So we live an outside-in kind of experience. Instead of coming from that place of joy and excitement and what's my gift to give and how do I live, we look to the outside and say, well, do I have enough money? Right? Do I have enough stature? Do I have the right house? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And we think that the circumstance then dictates what is possible for us. We forget who we are. We forget what we came here to do. And this is where I would say the vast majority of people live. Would you agree? Yeah. Maybe some of us, even in this room, are still dealing with this. I know it took me years to break out of that conditioning of my life that said what I was capable of and what I should be doing in that box that I was supposed to live in. So what we're talking about and what we're going to be doing for this next year, it's actually what we're always talking about in Centers for Spiritual Living, is busting that paradigm. Yes. Is shifting, right? Is going from that little bowl to the big bowl. It's stepping into that new possibility, that new greater yet to be. Now you all know the term paradigm shift. And so I'll give you an example of a paradigm shift. There was a time in human history when people believed the earth was flat. Right? We think that's very silly now, but there was a time when that was just a given, right? So how would people live if they believed that the earth was flat? You'd be afraid to move around, right? You'd be afraid to go out a little bit too far because you might fall off the edge. As silly as that seems. So people stayed very close because of that fear. So what happened when they realized, no, the earth is not flat. We're not going to fall off the edge. What did that open up? Everything, right? A whole new world. Think about yourself when you were a little kid before you learned how to ride that bike. And you look and you see your friends going to the neighbor's house and all of a sudden, you might be not trapped, but confined to your little backyard. And then you get the bicycle. And then you have to learn how to ride it. Right? And people can tell you how to ride a bike. But it's not until you get on that bicycle yourself that you get the feeling of balance. And what happens when you get that balance? You take off, right? And you never lose it. And some of you maybe have not been on a bike for 10 years, 20 years. I bet you could still get on a bike today and still know how to ride. Because you got balance. And it changed everything. That's a paradigm shift. When everything changes and suddenly things become possible that you had no idea could be so for you. Right? So when you finally got that ability to have balance and to ride that bicycle, it opened up all kinds of possibilities. Right? Now you could go not just around your block, but maybe, I'll speak for myself. I mean, I could go to my friend's house that lived like miles away. There was all kinds of freedom that came with learning how to ride a bike. So this is what we're looking at. We all have these paradigms, these ideas of what is possible for our lives. Not knowing. You don't know what you don't know. But I assure you, we're all on this great adventure together. And if you do the work, what I'm gonna be sharing with you, taking the classes and all, you will be coming into possibilities that you had no idea existed. Is that exciting for anyone else? And how do we do this? You see, we do it through the use of our mental faculties, through our imagination, through our minds. How many of you know everything is created twice? Yeah. Have you heard that phrase before? Mm-hmm. Everything is created twice. Think about this. Everything in this room was once a thought in someone's mind. Mm-hmm. Right? You had to have the idea, the blueprint for what it was, the model for what you wanted to create before it actually got created. From the carpet to the walls, the building itself, the technology that we have, everything started first as an idea, first as a blueprint. And then it becomes reality. However, when we look at conditions to determine what's possible, we get stuck in recreating the condition. Does that make sense? For everyone, that's when you're living from the outside in, you're looking at what's possible, what has been possible to date. Where is your blueprint? It's with what you're seeing out there. There's no new possibility. As long as you're looking at your conditions, as long as you're looking at what's in your bank account right now, you know, what you think you're capable of, that is what you're going to keep creating. This process requires that you look way outside of the box so that you can create the new possibility. So we want to get away from this conditioned-based thinking that's keeping us stuck in a rut and open up to new possibilities. So how do you get in touch with that? How do you get in touch with that? You ask yourself this question. What would I love? What would I love? What is a life that I would love to live? And I invite you to look at that from different aspects of life. Four aspects that we're going to look at here. Because they're the main ones that we all deal with. So your health and physical well-being, do you have a dream for that? What would you love? What would you love for your physical health to be? What would you like to do? Do you want to run a marathon? Is that a possibility for you? Do you want to climb mountains? You know me, I just want it to be like an average size. I wanted to be able to go into the department store and just pick something from the rack that said medium. That was my dream. It didn't seem possible, really, when I started. Almost 100 pounds overweight. And I thought, that's just, can I really do that? It seemed like such a big journey when I started. So that was my dream. What is your dream for your physical well-being? Think about that. How about your dreams for your relationships? Do you want to bring a new love into your life? Do you want to enhance the relationships that you already have? Do you want to make some new friends? Do you want to be part of a bigger community? Do you want to feel like you're making a difference? Right? Any one of those things could be a dream for your relationships. How about for your vocation? How many of you are doing work that you absolutely love? How many of you would love to love what you do? So maybe that's your dream. Maybe that's your dream. Right? I had a dream here. Actually, I had just a lot of ideas. Wanting to make this place a reentry center, wanting to have the wellness center. I just had so many possibilities. It felt overwhelming. Like, I don't even know where to start. And I don't even know if it's all possible. And I sat one day and I asked myself this question. What would I love? Not what do I think is possible. Not what do we have the money for. Not what do I have the time for. But what would I love? And when I sat down and I wrote those things out, all of a sudden it felt like, maybe this can really happen. And then it became, yes, this can happen. Right? And now we're working toward those dreams. So ask yourself that question, what would I love? So it's health, it's your relationships, it's your vocation. What do you think is the last one? Money. Financial well-being. Freedom of time and money. What would that look like for you? Does that mean you finally get to take a vacation this year? Or maybe it's that you get to take 2 vacations this year. Or maybe it's just ordering off the menu without looking at the price. Doing what you But being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. Amen. Having the time and the financial freedom to do those things. I have caught myself saying, whoops, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm going the wrong way. I got excited. I went too fast. I've actually caught myself saying, I either have time or money, never seem to have both. And the last time I said it, as soon as the words were out of my mouth, I thought, what did I just speak? Into that field of infinite potential. Why would I claim that for myself? Never again. I have time and money. Right? Now that's a shift. That would be a shift. How about you? To have the time and the money at the same time to do the things you want to do. Wouldn't that be? All right, maybe that's your possibility. Maybe that's your possibility. So ask yourself, what would I love? What would I love? And start writing this stuff down. Start writing, because it will make all the difference. Now you start to really work toward it. So the things that you're passionate about are not random. They are your calling. I never heard that quote before yesterday, actually, as I was looking for just ideas and inspiration. I came across this and I thought that is so true. The things you're passionate about are not random, they are your calling. That's your greater yet to be that is wanting to come forth through you in a way that only you can give it life. And so think about what are those passions, what are those dreams? You know, I've talked to kids that are 14 years old, 13, 12, 13, 14, and say, I don't have any dreams. You know, and you know they do. You know they do somewhere in there. It's just deep down buried, you know, where they're no longer believing that it's possible. But each one of us came here with gifts. We each came here with what we came to do. You know, so now it's time to break out of all that stuff that has told you couldn't do it and find your bigger why. Why are you here? I'm going to bring this back, actually. No, let me go forward. So, we talk about Maslow in here a lot. I love Maslow and this chart, this hierarchy of needs. Talked about it a lot last year. We did a whole, I think, month on this. How many of you are familiar with Maslow? If you've been here, you would be. If not, I'll give you a little bit of background. This is a chart basically that takes about a half dozen different theories in psychology and puts them into one. And at the bottom of this pyramid, we have our physiological needs. So the idea is that we as human beings all have these very basic needs for food, shelter, water, clothing, sex, breathing. I mean, all of those things, the very basic things that when you don't have them, you know right away. And then once that's satisfied, you go to the next level. So maybe having shelter means that you're sleeping under a bridge, but that's not security, right? Or you're sleeping on somebody's couch. That's not the same as the next level, which is safety and security, which is what we all crave. We're all looking for this. We want employment. We want to know we have insurance. We want to know that there's some kind of stability. So then the next level up is to feel a sense of love and belonging, to feel like you're part of something bigger, right? To feel like you have a sense of connection. There's family, there's intimacy, and so on. Then the next level up is self-esteem and confidence, right? It's achievement, it's respect, it's the need to be individual. Now the idea is that if you had the ideal childhood, that you would go through each one of these levels, each one of these things being satisfied, and then you could move to the next. So above self-esteem, then we have finally self-actualization. Maslow called self-actualizing people are those who have come to a high level of maturation, right? They've matured, they have health, they feel self-fulfilled, they appreciate truth and creativity, beauty, goodness, justice, simplicity, and self-sufficiency. That's where most people who took psychology, like where Maslow ended for them with this idea of self-actualization. But there was actually another level that he spoke about just before he made his transition, and that was this idea of self-transcendence, which is when you get beyond the boundaries of your own ego and living for yourself. So you could go up Maslow's hierarchy, right? Assuming that you don't get stuck in any one place, because what happens for most people is that, say their safety and security needs were not met as children, they spend the rest of their lives trying to be safe and secure. Can I ever make enough money? And what happens is it becomes that hamster wheel, and you never can make enough. It's never really quite good enough. If you're trying to get that love and belonging and have that intimacy, and that is your goal, you're going to be on that hamster wheel, because it's never going to be enough. The same with achievement. How many degrees do you need to have before you finally feel like it's enough? There are people that get stuck in that one. All of these can get you stuck on that hamster wheel where you're just trying, it's just never enough. However, if you start from the top and you go for the transcendence, for living beyond your own ego boundaries and what you feel like is like it's all about me. When your life becomes about something greater, when your life becomes about being of service, when your life becomes about using your gift, all those other things will fall into place. Self-transcendence. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause, to serve, or to another person to love, the more human he actually is, and the more he actualizes himself. Self-actualization is possible only as a side effect of self-transcendence. See, so Maslow at the beginning thought that self-transcendence was the end-all be-all. If you went to self-actualization, if you went for that, then everything would fill in. But it was not so. It's the idea that if you go for that bigger gift, as he said, the forgetting yourself, being about something greater, then all the other things would be added into your life. The Bible says, seek first the kingdom. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Is seeking that connection, is seeking, how can I give my gift in the service of humanity? Or of my family, of my community. That's what we are here to do. So the idea is to follow the aliveness. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back a little bit. I want to show you. Okay, where he says here, self-actualizing people appreciate truth, creativity, beauty, goodness, wholeness, aliveness. Maslow said that people who were self-transcendent had high porosity to aliveness. Isn't that a beautiful quote? Follow aliveness. Now, Grady and I have these two beautiful grandbabies. We had 2 babies in 1 year. The oldest one is just a year old, the other one is 10 months old. And they're just, what do I say, poster children for aliveness? I mean, these kids, from the moment they open their eyes, they're like, what can I get into? Right? What can I learn about? Everything. I mean, everything. They're just raring to go from the moment they open their eyes in the morning. They're excited. They're joyous. And they're so much fun. It's just so much fun to watch them. The 2 of them will just they try to never sleep. You know, they find themselves falling asleep, and it's like, no, I can't sleep. There's too much to do. I don't have time for this. They're not really that unlike their grandmother, because I have that problem too. That's why you see me up sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, because I don't want to go to sleep. There's too much to do. It's too much fun. So follow the aliveness. What is that thing that just makes your heart sing? You know, and maybe you're looking at it saying, well, I can't make a living doing that. Well, you don't need to. You don't need to make a living. You just need to follow that. Follow the breadcrumbs, because it's leading you somewhere. I don't know where, because it's different for each one of us, but there is something in that for you. Whatever it is that brings you that sense of joy and that feeling of connection and like, I just can't wait to get up in the morning and do this, do it. That's what's yours to do. Nobody else's, it is yours to do. Follow the aliveness. This brings us kind of back to where we started, because you think about the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. All right, so many of us heard a voice that sounded like judgment, that maybe quite frankly it was. Or maybe it just sounded like that. Or maybe it was coming from someone who was still in their box, that was trying to keep you safe. Their version of safety. How we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. And maybe you didn't hear great voices when you were a kid, but you have an opportunity now to change the voices in your head. Keep listening to talks like this. Read the spiritual literature. Change the inner conversation, the inner dialogue that you're telling yourself about what is possible. Because your dream is awaiting your recognition and your permission to come through you. What would you do? What would you try if you knew you couldn't fail? It's another version of the question, what would I love? Right? If your age was not a factor, if your gender was not a factor, if the amount of money that you made, all of those things were not a question in your mind, what would you try? Actually ask yourself the question and write down your top 5 answers. And there's your clue. That's the place to start. If you don't even know what your dream is yet, start with this. What would I love, and what would I try if I knew I couldn't fail? And that will be your starting point. And then as we go through the next few months, we'll start to refine that dream. And then we're going to help you figure out the things that maybe get in the way, and how you traverse from this place where you are to where you want to be. Because it might look like a big jump. It might look like a big scary jump. But we're going to give you all of the tools and the understanding so that you can do that. And to be doing it in community where you have the support of friends and others who are on the path with you. How many of you are up for that? All right. How many of you are going to go home and list the 5 things, what you would try, what you would do if you knew you couldn't fail? All hands up? Yes. 5. I'm going to ask you about it next week. All right.